Hello, everybody. It is me, Pacific. Okay, it's Sunday, and I got a few things to say, as usual. This is not going to be what you think it is, though. This is going to be different. It's going to be a little bit like Wine, Women, and Song, but not about my forays with women. But it's going to be a very honest, transparent, vulnerable video that, in light with the backdrop of trolls swirling around, I'm going to continue to be who I am. But I wanted to talk about somebody, but first I wanted to read some scripture that's going to be the backdrop of this. Genesis 32, verse 24. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. And when he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh, so the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him and said, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, for he said, "I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved." Now the sun rose upon him just as he crossed over Penuel, and he was limping on his thigh. Therefore to this day the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. When I watch all of life through my limited vision, look at myself and look at people around me, listen to this morning's preacher, who was very good, and when I watch everything, and I look at my viewers, my fans, my benefiters, my detractors, and I put all this together, sometimes it is overwhelming. The title of this video is "Venus Star Told Me to Stay." And I'm going to do something very different. I got a lot to say, and it's going to be a whole lot of frayed loose ends of opening a circuit panel, and you're going to see wires and go, where do these all go? Hopefully by the end of the video, all those wires will be routed in circuit breakers and connected, and everything will go exactly where it needs to go. Meanwhile, bear with me. Venus Star is a woman in Barbados who has a maturity level that is different than most people in their 20s here. Venus Star is a woman who goes to college, who thinks clearly with a clear level head, and I have gotten more insight from her than most of the women I've had any kind of involvement with on YouTube as a chatting basis. Last November, as many of you know, there were problems. My ex-wife was leaving notes, very, very immature, unprofessional, mean-spirited, hateful, accusatory notes, implying she's the victim, I'm the bad guy, my son is this way because of me. My ex-wife had done some things that were just wrong. Dropped his health insurance last October, didn't tell me there were problems. I want it to be made clear, my ex and I are amicable now, and it's only taken 8 years to get there. I am thankful to God for that, and I hope it continues, though I don't hold my breath. Pacific is not Jesus Christ, but Pacific is acquainted with sorrows and hardship and trials and dead ends and drawbridge up mentality with most of the people I come into contact with. YouTube shocked and exceeded anything I ever figured. I made a call to Ontario, Canada last night, that I call people that are around the globe because of this forum. That this forum has brought its own continuity and own community of actual human beings in their various and assorted, diverse, and ethnic walks of life, some Christians, some not, that have used this as a touchstone to get in touch with me and themselves and God. Pacific Ocean Asia is not your normal standard channel. Many of my critics have said this is a walking soap opera, daily soap opera. This is a walking train wreck disaster. Some people watch it just for purely entertainment value, to mock, to laugh, to ridicule, and to make themselves feel like they're pretty all that on a stick. Others watch this, stumbling upon it, going, who's this nut job? And at first, some people start to watch and go, this guy's an idiot. But if they hang on long enough, they start going, whoa, he's not an idiot at all. The varied reactions to Pacific Ocean Asia, the man, me, Pacific, is everywhere, from one end of the spectrum to the other. Pacific is a lightning rod. There's no doubt in my mind. I've known that way back in my 20s. And it is because I'm not polished. I'm not sanded, polished, rounded, smooth wood in a fancy mansion somewhere. And yet at the same time, I'm not some redneck. I'm not sure what I am. To this day, to define me, I think is impossible. And I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of Americans have problems with me. If you don't fit into a nice, neat little yuppie box, middle-class box, or in a church box, and there's a lot of church boxes in the United States. You go to this church over here, it's got this conservative culture of exclusivity, a club mentality that, oh, you don't dress like us, you don't walk like us, so, you know, we'll be nice. Hi, how are you? Glad you're here. Lie. And they'll put up with you. But don't try to rock that boat. Don't try to get close. We're going to talk about some things that none of you have heard me discuss to date, so you want to stay tuned. This is a cutting-edge, groundbreaker video in the context that you will have never before released insight into some of my struggles that I've kept my mouth shut about. Because some people have a view of me that's not always accurate. But let's talk about Venus Star. I met Venus Star well over a year ago. She referred to me as Brother Pacific, and I liked that. I liked that right from the start. I had no idea what she looked like. None. But like Maharani, I saw the profound statements she was making in comments, and I thought, wow, this is a woman that's got some insight. So I pressed on and wanted to get to know her, and we emailed. Very, very, very sketchy at first. She was busy. I'd get an email once every 6 months, 3 months. Then things became more concentrated when she had more time and we were able to talk. This summer, we had tentatively, she and I both had wanted me to go to Barbados, and my criteria for me going to any country now is simple. I must have housing. 2 reasons for that. One is selfishness. I'll be up front. I don't want to pay $200-300 a night hotels. That just ruins anything. That's ridiculous money for a bed and a place to sleep and shower. 2, I want a reason to go somewhere, and to be invited over is a good reason to go, providing that that is not an occasion for the flesh. People ask me all the time, are you going to go back to Hong Kong? Not unless I'm invited to go and have a specific purpose in going there. People ask, would you want a job in Hong Kong? It depends on what it is. Hard labor, sweating it out in a sauna heat there? No, absolutely not. Public speaking, I'd do it in a dead second minute. Of course, I'd do that anywhere in the globe if somebody wanted to pay me to speak. More and more, I've told my viewers that I'm into transportation, and I am. I love transportation. But I am getting older. My eyesight is changing little by little, and one day my CDL will not be able to be renewed because the eyesight will change and it won't meet the requirements. And right now I'm saying, you know, Lord, I'm going to have something else to kind of fall back on. Humanly, it'd be easy to worry. Oh, no, what am I going to do if I can't drive? Let's talk about that scripture verse that I just read to you. You think I don't wrestle with God? You do. We all do. I could name people on my channel right now that wrestle. Some people have really gotten mad at God and seen some things about God that are tough pills to swallow. Wouldn't it be nice if God was just in this nice, neat little box and wanted to bless us all the time and make things easy and comfortable and dry our tears and clean up our boo-boos and everything? And that's nice picture of God, but it's not accurate. God is going to touch everybody's hip sooner or later. Let me say that one more time. God is going to touch everybody's hip sooner or later. I don't care if you're some good-looking girl, Christian with a stuck-up mentality. I don't care if you're pulling down $100,000 a year and got all the nice cars and nice rides and got your life all worked out and figured out. If you're a child of God, God is not comfortable with letting any of us stay where we are. If you don't think I haven't gotten that message, I get it all the time. Stage door 5 opens up, Venus Star walks through, and I had the privilege of a time of sharing the stage with her, hearing her views, hearing her mind, hearing her struggles, hearing her talk about her background with certain family members and her struggle with her own father, which I'm not going to get into. But her father was not a cool person. Last November, Thanksgiving week was coming. I'd had enough of the nasty notes on my pickup, and I finally said, you know what? I can't do anything to help my son. That time, he didn't want anything to do with me. He was running around with a pack of people, one kingpin in particular that was not good, who's still not doing good, and is now bleeding all over his Facebook page against his own so-called faithful friends that have just walked away from him. He's accusing them of theft of PCs and headsets and this and that, and he's whining on his Facebook page about all the people that have deserted him and saying bad stuff about him. I'm like, good, I hope they all continue. You've been a shyster, young man, a shyster. You disrespected the father of a son, and you said things you have no business saying to anybody my age. What goes around comes around, and your so-called rock star fans are waking up to you and seeing the holes right in your world. I don't care if all your friends leave you. I really don't. You are despicable. I would telephone Venus. Barbados say, are you able to go on Skype? Oh, yes. Okay, I'll see you there in 15 minutes. Barbados is very expensive to call, so it's not convenient to talk there for any length of time. Skype is free. So I laid it all out. I said, Venus, I have a friend in Texas, one of my viewers also, who said, you know, we can go get a place and we could find work and we could share expenses. And I thought, shoot, great, let's do it. I'm in. How about if I just, and here was my plan, was to put my topper on the truck, back it into the backyard, load it up where nobody could see it from the drive, and then literally leave that day and flee as many miles as I could get under my belt. And my thought was, go ahead and leave nasty notes on my pickup now. Yeah. Venus Star told me, I think for you to run, no matter what's going on, I don't think that'd be what God wants you to do. Well, I argued with her. I said, come on, man. What good is it me to stay here? And then January comes and the accident that my son's involved in, and things just really got worse. Going to the ER, and almost the first thing out of my ex's mouth is, none of this would have happened if it's just all your fault. It's all my fault I got in a car with a bunch of drunks? I don't think so. But let me say some things. Divorce is hard on the children, but marriage is also hard on the children. Seeing friction, fighting, no unity, no love, no continuity. Not good. And this is not a video about my ex. But I implored Venus. I said, I am sick of dealing with that woman. She agreed. She goes, I'm not going to argue with you on your ex. She's totally out of the will of God, totally out of line, and she's in complete denial, and she wants to blame everything on you, and God is going to deal with her. And I said, when? When is he going to deal with her? She's running around telling all her friends what a piece of trash man I was, when I'm the one that divorced her. She got the attorney. She filed the proceedings, but I'm the one that said, I'm out. Before she went to legal. Things have really changed because I want to tell her again, you really need to come to my church. I don't want her in my church. I don't want that past in my face. But even now, my mind is starting to say, my gosh, she needs to get under my pastor's teaching. I want you to think about that, viewers. I don't want to be around her. I don't like her. I don't. I care about her in a unique, weird way. She went through a very bad mother. And I don't wish ill will to befall her. Though, I know deep down inside that she still projects and blames me for all of my son's troubles. One of the biggest problems I'm having with my son right now is getting a fire under his ass and getting him to do something productive. Staying up all night, sleeping in all day, that we have to beg and plead to get him to do his chores, and now I've had to impose consequences, one of them saying, if you don't do the chores, Mom's going to cut off the service to your phone. We're not going to try to get the phone. Forget it. We'll just call. She'll call and say, I want to suspend service on this phone, please. It's sad when we live in a country where now you can't touch the kids, you can't do this, and you don't want to get into a power struggle of reaching across the room and grabbing it out of his hand. Now you got to be smarter than that. I ask him to come one day a week to work with me, $50. His task, when I go to the other lot, you just ride with me, you shadow me, I'll lift the batteries, I'll do it all. All you got to do is get in these trucks. When I get them fired up, just accelerate them up to 1,000 RPMs. That's it. Easy. I wish somebody'd pay me $50 to rev some truck engines. Vroom, vroom. Yeah, wouldn't that be fun? I'm not a cruel taskmaster. I cannot even begin to expect my son to have my work ethic, drive, stamina, or adrenaline. For me to put that on him would be just cruel. And that's saying something about our youth today. They do not have the drive that me and many of my viewers that are my age have. I want my viewers to know something about Venus. I want viewers to know that I wasn't looking at Venus with lust in my eyes and looking at her as, ooh, possible girlfriend. Though that did cross my mind as she had expressed an interest in me, and I her. But as I got to know her more and more, I started to see her more as a sister and said, you know what? And I'm going to say something here that we all need to listen to. One of the problems that we have when you have a persona like me or anybody who's out there, whether in a preaching, television spotlight, or a pastor of a large church, or somebody who's a rock star, or a motivational speaker, or just a simple YouTube guy like me, there's a tendency for people to make us into rock stars. I'm going to tell you something foundational to getting through life. Number one, and you must put this as part of your foundation for understanding human beings. You will not agree with anybody 100% of the time. I don't care how much your best friend is your BBF or BFF forever and ever times infinity. You're not going to agree with that person 100% all of the time on everything. I have one of the best pastors I have had in years. I don't agree with every single teaching that comes out of his mouth. That's why we go to the book of Acts. It says the Bereans check the scriptures daily to see whether these things be so. You, my viewers, have to smith out. That's an anvil term. Taking a hot metal, banging it to shape it. You have to smith out your views. You have to use the tools of the Word of God. You have to go through the fiery furnace of affliction, and you've got to work out your viewpoints and own them for yourself, whatever they are. Let each man be convinced in his own mind. You don't take my views and apply them onto your life just because Pacific said so. You don't do it just because Osteen said so, MacArthur said so, or Joyce Myers or anybody else. It either squares up with the teaching of Scripture or it doesn't. There are some areas of Scripture and some things in Scripture that when we come to a modern culture like we're in today, that there are gray areas that Scripture is not dogmatic on. But there is generally an overarching support system of principles that can be wrought out from the Word of God to govern things such as playing cards, watching television, how you drive your automobile, how you get along with your neighbor. Here's one I'm going to throw out just for free. If you're wondering whether something's right or wrong, you probably already know the doggone answer. And you know why? Because it says, if you feel it's a sin, then for you to do it, it's wrong. Doesn't matter what everybody else does. It matters you. If you feel conviction and guilt when you do something, you don't need to be asking everybody, is this right? Is this wrong? The only exception to that is if you've been in a cult like Catholicism, Seventh-day Adventist, Jehovah's Witness, Mormons, and even a lot of evangelical cult-like churches that, though they believe Orthodox doctrine in many major tenets that I would agree with, there are still cult-like behaviors that go on. And people can be brainwashed to think that this and this and this is wrong when it really isn't. And you could say, well, maybe they have a tender conscience. No, their conscience has been imprinted by group dynamics. That's how cults prosper. Coconut chunks. Venus Star told me to stay. And as a result of that, I can honestly say I don't like any of what I've had to go through in the last so many months. But I'll tell you what, I feel like more of a man because of it. I feel like I can walk through this city and face my past dead on and say, I haven't changed a darn thing with either of you two. But I have stayed the course. And I didn't run, and that gives me more muscles internally. Thank you, Venus Star, for being faithful to declare that I feel God impressed upon you to tell to me. I owe you that. I don't agree with you in every single thing. I agree with you to 99.9%. That's a higher mark than I'll give most of the female viewers I've ever had any discussion with at all. You are a sister. And I'm sorry about all this YouTube drama and stuff. Some of that couldn't be helped. But I love you as a sister, and I respect you. And I don't want things damaged between us. Because there are things that God can speak through you to me. And that needs to be magnified out to my female viewers that think I hate women. I believe God can speak through a woman. She is not to teach or have authority over me. But that doesn't mean that God cannot use a woman to speak into my life and have a calm way of delivering something that the Holy Spirit can take that dart and go, missile receive right in Pacific's deep inside his engine room. I do not believe that men are superior to women. But I also don't believe that just because I adore her doesn't mean I'm going to agree with every single thing. I'll tell you one of the dynamics I've grown up with in my life, and it's time to really massage this out to my viewers. Bananas and coconuts does a body good. No, that's not it. I've noticed a dynamic in my life, and it took me years to finally wake up to it and say it out loud to myself. And when I started saying that, it changed my thinking. And it is this. In America, we have a problem. Other people from other countries may be listening and may go, oh, that goes into my country too. Okay, fair enough. But I noticed something when I was in Asia that I don't see here. There are times when I've had to look at some of the gals I dated and said, you know what, that was rude. That was wrong. And they've backed up and said, you know what, I'm sorry. Here, Americans like to tell Pacific what's wrong with him, how I need to correct my thinking, look at things through the eyes of Jesus, and I got to do this, and I got to change. And one of the biggest things that I've been told in workplaces, I hate it when management says, well, that's just the way that person is. But then when I get called in the office for something, I'm going, boy, can I use the default mode? Well, that's just the way I am. Has anybody who watches my channel seen this dynamic in this country? That everybody feels free to tell you what's wrong with you, but if you turn around and say, okay, you're right on some of these things, but can I point out some critique on your life? Watch what happens. See how far you get with that. You'd be better off taking a dog and shaving its butt and making it walk backwards and get more positive results from that than you will trying to critique somebody else. Sorry, but most Americans tend to talk like this, not realizing that all three of these are pointing that way. I'm going to tell you something as a Christian, people. Listen carefully. If you're going to dish out criticism, you better be willing to take it. And if you can't, you have no right to tell me a damn thing about me. As evidenced by some of the trolls in the last week, one of them is behaving very badly and poorly as a so-called advisor of the faith. I know I have a problem, but this person doesn't think he sins or has a problem at all. And this is a big epidemic problem in the evangelical church in America today. That everybody's running around going, look at, especially American Christian women. Guys are lustful, guys masturbate, guys are pigs. Yep, and you're a materialistic, vain, self-serving, egotistical piece of rot that contributes nothing good to a relationship with any man that would even take you. But you don't see any of that, do you? Big deal, Pacific. Venus asked you to stay. Who cares? I'll tell you why it's important. As I spill stuff all down my shirt. Isn't that fun? Sometimes you got to get messy with stuff. I'm about to get messy now. Butt Pirate made a comment on his Facebook page last summer saying, yeah, Pacific lives with old people, just takes advantage of them. Number one, the people that I live with, they're sharp up here. They would never go for that. Never. Number two, they have 4 children, all of which are in constant contact and come over to this house a lot. If I was doing anything wrong, those 4 would say, get him out of here now. One is my age, the rest are older than me. The following comments have been made by the children of the people I live with. We're glad you're here. The son said, "Now you know what we went through with our mother." I chuckled and I said, "How did you guys survive?" "Oh, when we got out on our own, we got out." 3 of the boys want nothing to do with their faith. Things were not perfect over here. Like any family, it has its problems. But I've watched a man stay married to this woman for 63 years, and my hat is off to him. It has not been easy for him. He is drowned in his own struggles with problems, and he spends a lot of time in the garage doing projects just to avoid her. But he has told me, since you have been here, you've given longevity to our marriage because I don't have to do all the stuff she wants me to do. We're going to talk about that. This is not a video to attack the people that God has blessed, has used them to give me a place to stay. But I want to say something to my viewers lest they misunderstand me. Number one, I'm thankful to God. This is His provision. It's so easy for us to say, well, that person did this for me. That person did this to me because that person was moved on by God to do something. But I want to talk about the struggle that I've had just living with 2 people that are not like myself. One, the age difference. They're both in their 80s. The woman loves to garden, but she's at an age where she can't do all the things she used to do. A lot of the time she's bedridden. A lot of the time she's not able to get up. Her energy level is limited. She's had a lot of operations over the years and stuff, and she's not at 100%. But Pacific is out of struggles. I get home from a hard day at work. I come in the kitchen. First thing I do is I start to cook something, and this is what I hear. "You need to put oil in that pan." I said, "No, that's frozen fish. I'm going to put oil. It's on a low heat. I need to let the water thaw out of it first, and then as it starts to liquid, it starts to go, then I add a little oil." She watches programs. She watches Fox News. She gets a lot of fear about things going on in the world. I heard some show that if you don't put oil on the Teflon pan, that can cause cancer and all this. I said, look, I breathe diesel all day. I got the sun shining on me, burning my skin. I mean, if I'm going to get cancer, I'm going to get it. And it's funny, as of late, little things are bothering her that never bothered her before. That I put a pot in the same place every day with the lid upside down on it so that the lid's not too high when you go to pull it out. She's so used to doing things a certain way that she got all bent out of shape about that and said, "Well, I want that lid on the other side." I said, "Why?" "Because I almost dropped it." I said, "Well, be aware." Bottom line is, everything has to change for her, but she doesn't have to accommodate. Every day I have watched her get in a petty squabble with her husband. She is tough as a marriage. She is tough. That I could never have gone through 63 years, let alone one, watching the dynamic. She was very hard on her children, extremely hard. She even admitted that she was ultra strict. She was molested by a black servant back in the 1930s. Her folks were well off, and the black maid molested her at a very young age. I think she said 3. And she said that caused issues. I come home from work. I don't hear, "Hey, how was your day? Hi, how are you?" I'll get that from him. He's the more level-headed one. When my viewers, Schultz, Mr. Laidlow, Mr. Mike, and I forget, sorry, the Aston Bright, have used the term emotionally driven logic, which I love that. I'm pirating that from you guys. This woman operates on emotionally driven almost all the time. I'll give you an example. This weekend, yesterday, I finally blew a stack and said, you need to stand back and look at this. Got all this wrought iron furniture, patio furniture. It's green. She's having people over Tuesday. She spontaneously says, "I'm having people, I got to get all this stuff painted." "Why do you have to get this painted right now?" "It's fine. The paint's not coming off. It's fine." "What?" "Well, I don't want it to color. I don't want that color anymore." So then I got to scrub down with a brush, scrub down the chairs, get everything ready. Then she wants this painted and this painted and this painted. And I said, and it's chaos. Her panicking, her freaking. And I said, you know, then she had another plant to pot, buying plants and plants. I got to get this in right now. I said, why do you keep buying all these plants? Most of them die. I keep getting annuals and perennials mixed up. Some are not year round. Some are bloom, flowers, fall, dead, gone. Now I'm very too practical, and this is where women hate me. I'm like, why spend all this money in the garden for all the stuff that's going to die and never come back? I should put in some juniper bushes and some stuff that's Colorado native that takes care of itself. Pacific is not going to be a slave to a yard if God ever even blesses me to have one again. But yes, we're all different, and not everybody's the same. And I finally said it. I said, you know, your hobby is gardening. But I said, you can't do it all anymore. I said, when your hobby becomes a burden to everybody else, don't you think you should cut back and not be so... Well, I love doing this. I said, yes, but I have to lift the stuff. I have to plant the stuff. I have to shovel the holes. I've got to clean it. And then I'll get everything all cleaned up. And then she'll go and pull weeds and throw them over her back all over the path. Piles and piles of stuff. And I said, can you put a garbage can? I even went and bought her a personal small-sized trash can. Well, it's too hard to bend down. I said, you're bending down, pulling them anyway. Can't you just go... Old people don't change, and they can become almost like toddlers, and I'm watching that take place. Even her own husband says, you're doing too much. Why do you got to have all this stuff done? Why do you go out and buy 29 plants and then come in the house that same minute and say, we got to get these in the ground right away, they're all going to die? This is a woman who claims she's full of the Holy Spirit. She claims to have the gift of tongues, etc., etc. My living with her in 3 years, and even when I rented next doors, I thought this woman does not have peace most of the time. She panics, she worries, she freaks out. The other day, she'd heard something on the news that some big shot in the seismological world is claiming there's going to be a big earthquake in the Pacific Northwest. And I tried to reason with her from what I understand about earthquakes. Number one, people can't predict it. Oh, but he's a big name. I said, I don't care. Ever since I was a kid, there's always a geologist. Like I said the other day, if you grab a handful of darts and take all the darts and throw them, one of them's going to hit the dartboard eventually. But it doesn't mean you predicted it. And you've got scientists doing this all the time because they're like humans, and they are humans, and they have an ego. And if somebody can say something, and the very next day the big one hits, what do you think that's going to do to them? He said it was going to happen. Oh, rock star, seismological rock star. He said this earthquake's going to hit downtown Seattle, and it did. He guessed. I'm sorry, but seismologists are not prophets of God, and God does not come down and tell some egotistical scientist, hey, at 10:15 a.m. there's going to be an earthquake in downtown L.A. Let everybody know. All the movies work on that. Wouldn't it be nice if we had that kind of control? Get on this date, December 25th. Or 24th or whatever in Indonesia, that there's going to be a tsunami that's going to wipe out 220,000 people. If you want to talk about Rockstar, Pacific were able to predict with pinpoint accuracy weeks in advance some big event, and they just couple those happen exactly as I said it. The next time I speak, I'm going to be on national news, and I'm going to be making tons of money as a seer. Excuse me. Egyptian culture had them. And we gloss over that, don't we? It says they were able to duplicate all the stuff Moses did. So people put stock in those guys. I really got my butt chapped several weeks ago when she came out and says, we've got to get those plants and the pots covered up. They're predicting golf ball-sized hail. And I said, golf ball-sized hail? I said, you know what that's going to do to your roof and the skylights and the sliding glass doors and all the vegetation in the yard, not to mention the automobiles? Well, I don't care about all that, but I don't want to lose these plants. I spend a lot of money for them. I'm so glad that I'm with a sane Christian woman who's more concerned about a couple, literally 6 or 7 flower pots, over the collateral damage that would hit the entire community. First world problems, people. She's got the good life. She does not have to work a damn day. Her husband provided her an entire existence, and she is hard as hell on him. Hard as hell. Nags at him and bitches at him on a daily basis. And yet he still stays in it. Pacific is made of different stock. 1 year of that, I would have said, get out! I have lived constantly around women. And out of these sexes, women are the worst ones to try to critique. The worst ones for admitting that, you know, this is really highly frickin' dysfunctional behavior. So when Venus tells me to just stay, part of me says, but I'm tired of all this other stuff. Nosy, 49 years old. Who'd you go out with? Just a friend from work. Oh, who is that? How old is she? Does she smoke? Does she drink? Is she a Christian? Has she been divorced? Does she have children? Wow, I didn't know I was under an interview. One day I finally turned around and said, you know, I'm an adult. I don't ask you all that personal stuff. And more, I don't answer. I just say, you know what? It's just somebody I know. Another thing I've noticed with women is you try to tell them a story. The story is the point. And it takes 5 minutes to tell it. You don't want to ask who they're related to and how many children they have. It's like, that has nothing to do with this. Could I please finish what I'm saying? Women do what's called spiderwebbing with their thinking. Man's more like, grab the football, run to the goalpost, touchdown. If you were to put women in a football game, the guy that's running with the football, these women would be coming, oh, let me see that ball. No, come here, let me see the ball. Give me the ball. I want the ball. I mean, the guy would never make it to the goalpost. And women do with spider webbing. They do it all the time. How many of you men can attest to that? You talk to your girlfriend and you're making a point, a singular point with the story. Oh, what bleacher do they sit on? Was that the bleacher that had the colored red spot on the end of it? Who freaking cares what color the bleacher was? I'm telling you, women are mad. They really are. And there are times when I just shake my head and go, now let's go to step number 2, and I want to say something very careful so that this does not appear as self-righteous on my part. We've got an increasingly number of American Christians that don't believe they should go to church anymore, and they justify it. The Bible says, forsake not the assembling of yourselves together, as is the manner of some. And we got a lot of Christians saying, well, you know, the church is bad, I don't have to go. I disagree with that. If anybody would have a reason to start a home church, it'd be me. But I've never had the peace of God for doing that. The man of this house has started several home churches back in the 70s and 80s, and they've all failed, one right after another. He gets a following, gets a bunch of people, oh, yeah. But then he starts getting off in opinions and tangents, and they all go, psh. You need to be called to ministry. You can't call yourself. And I need to say that. There's a lot of self-imposed preachers and people putting themselves in pulpits, and oh yeah, you got a crowd and they're pulling money in, but God did not call them. When I think of a woman claiming to have the Holy Spirit, and the other day she says, why can't you eat that? I said, it has wheat flour, I'm allergic to that. Oh, well, you just need to have more faith. I said, what? I said, we've been through this before, man. I said, just because I'm a child of God doesn't mean that I have the right to expect God to step over my allergies and say, well, you're a child of God now. You should be able to eat anything you want. Think about the charismatic madness that goes on in the Christian's mind who follows that ridiculous. And if you want to talk about emotional-based theology, the charismatic church is number one for that. Emotionally based theology is not scriptural. And I have issue with the Baptists, the matter-of-fact, cold, austere, but this is what the Word of God says. Thank you for inspiring me to follow closer with Jesus. You really know how to make me feel like I really want to be intimate with him. Not. We have two extremes in American culture. We have the Baptist extremism over here, that though they are orthodox, they are like Ephesus. They've left their first love. Then you got the church that'll give you the big group hug, make you feel good, and it's all euphoric-based teaching and preaching and disseminating of the Word of God to fit their heretical teachings. Dangerous ground. I'm not going to get into a dissertation on the gifts of healing in tongues, but let me tell you what happened when I brought up, when she was freaking out about the earthquake scenario. I said, do you remember a couple weeks ago? Now, I wasn't rude, but I was firm. I said, do you remember a couple weeks ago? We were out in the yard, and I said, you said that the only news channel that you believe is the most accurate in weather reporting, true story, that they were calling for golf ball-sized hail in our area. You panicked and wanted all these chairs covering all the flower pots. You could care less about our cars, the roof, anything else. I said, how many pieces of hail fell that night? And I said, no, answer the question. She goes, well, it's because I prayed. I said, really? You prayed that God wouldn't let your flowers get damaged, while 30 miles east it damaged another bunch of crops where a whole bunch of people can get fed from. You mean to tell me that because you're a child of God, God cares more about your precious petunias than about some eastern range farmers that have had so much rain that it mildewed and destroyed the crops, and then they get the hailstorms? I'll tell you what, Americans, you better start thinking about that food you buy in the store. And you better bow your head and thank God for it and say, Lord, thank you for protecting the crops. Bless the farmers of America. If you want to have a crisis, just keep letting bad weather hit all across this nation and take a hit out of our crop production and watch what happens to your so-called paycheck. When a bucket of oatmeal goes to $20 because oats are scarce, you'll be appreciating farmers a lot more. But what bothers me about the false theology of that is I know many Christians, more so women than men, which is tandem with our culture's love of self, women's innate narcissism. And I say the word innate because women are innately narcissistic. That is finally something I've had to say, because when I look at the bulk of American women, they're very self-centered. They're not productive output. They're stagnant lakes that all the rivers of attention, resources flow into them, while the person who's investing in them gets absolutely nothing in return except the possible dangled carrot stick 10 feet out in front of them of maybe you get to have some sex with them. I'm speaking out against that because it is just so freaking wrong. Most white women that are in a marriage that condemn all the sexual sins are not great lovers themselves in bed. They're not intimate and sweet and loving. And for all that an American man has to go through to woo, to get, to attract, to keep, to be involved with a woman, the return on his investment in her is usually that. Most women in the U.S. are that way. Most. Then you add in and factor in the whole plethora of the new generation of obese, plus size, women now gaining weight, loaded with more addictions and habits than 50, 60 years ago. Gotta have a dog, gotta smoke my cigarette, gotta drink my alcohol, gotta have my cable TV and have my TV going all night long. I don't care if you can't get your sleep, I can't miss my program. You start adding up the collateral damage and Pacific starts going, you know what? Don't look for marriage. Marriage is hell. When I think of what he goes through to accommodate her, I think, how does he do this? Pacific won't do it. I will give my all to a woman, but more and more when I see stuff like that, I will stand up and say, no, bad dog, go to your room. You need to. American men need to stand up and say the word, and it will feel good to do it. No, wife, you're not buying that. And if you do, consequences. You can't. And no, when I say consequences, I don't mean beating her, but you say, look, you're going to do that. I'm just not going to give you any of my paycheck anymore. I'm starting to realize that men need to have their own separate bank accounts and never put your wife as a co-signer on there. We live in a messed up world today. I know there's men that get into debt and waste money. I know that. Let me tell you what my boss said the other day, women. But before I tell you what he said, he was married for 16 years. He's upper middle class. There's a very nice house. I saw it. Didn't go inside, but it was in the garage. I went into a semi-truck the other day. We've got a bunch of trucks that have been sitting for well over a year that we need to get moseying and ready and batteries checked and run them and start moving them, selling them. I went in a truck where there was clothing, curling irons, and women's accoutrements all over the upper bunk and the bottom bunk and all around the driver's area. Spray bottles of Febreze, Windex bottles, all the stuff. And the inside of this thing looked like a dang pigsty. And I admit, I've rifled through everything. I found a DVD player for my son with a cigarette lighter adapter attached to it. DVDs. I emptied the pants out and all this money fell out. I pocketed it because the company went bankrupt. So all the trucks, when they got to their last destination, were seized. The drivers were ordered to get their stuff, get out, and a lot of these drivers just left everything in it and bailed. So, it's ours. The inside of that cab was a mess. The little drawers and cubby holes in the sleeper compartment were loaded with ketchup packets, crackers, boxes of graham crackers, so many things. I even joked. An unopened box of graham crackers. I said, here, you want these? I said, you seem to be whining all day. Here's some crackers for your wine. He looked at the box. He says, yeah, I'll eat those. Oh, except the date is 5 years past expiration. I said, awesome. Woman had that in her truck for 5 years. Now, flash to last Thursday when I was helping my boss do something, and he said this. Have you ever looked inside a woman's vehicle? He said, some of these semi-trucks we get back, their women drive them, and they're horrible inside. And I said, yep, I've seen it with their cars, too. Why is it that women are so quick to criticize us males when they got this huge cargo ship list of offenses and sins in their own life? And if you try to tell them that, you're going to get a whole bunch of baby behavior and hear baby crying like you've never heard baby crying. Just saying. It's not an attack video on women. But I'm going to tell you something that really pissed me off the other day. I got in my truck yesterday, went to the Dragon Boat Festival. I was angry because I thought another day all by myself. I was upset because of the craziness of Nazi-like behavior. All of a sudden we got to paint everything and change everything just because of a bunch of 80-something-year-old Christian women are going to come over. And it's like they don't even care. Why do we got to be so vain? And increasingly more and more I want to come home after my job and have my own place so that I don't have to attend to this anymore. I have every damn reason to leave this place. Every damn reason. Colorado, meaning Colorado. I don't like the people in Colorado. I still try to be polite, but I don't like the bulk of the people out here. I think Coloradans are a-holes. Most of them. They're rude on the roads. They're rude in the stores. They won't even say hi to you at a public event. This is a lonely place. I said this is a ghost town, this America. My ex this morning on the phone was complaining to me about her boss. The boss that she always loved, was friends with, that she also talked crap about me to. And now she's saying she's a biatch. Can't stand her. Blah, blah, blah. And I really don't want to hear it. I go, yeah, but you bent her ear and told her what a piece of crap I was. Maybe she's starting to see through you and is getting tired of you too. I want to say, but I can't. Nothing frustrates Pacific more than people want to look into my life and critique and criticize and tell me all the things I need to change, but try to do that back to them and rock your rock, buddy. You can't get it done. They're not going to do it. You think I could go out here and say, can you step outside yourself and look at yourself? 3 days before something's supposed to take place, and now you're in a panic? You didn't give us advance warning. You didn't. Well, I told you last week. I said, you told me you were having people over, and they were going to be in the house, and I could have focused on cleaning. I said, I'm only doing this much today. And her own husband came to me and said, you've done enough today. Go to that Dragon Boat Festival and have fun. Get out. Go do something. I like him. I don't agree with all of his theology. He does not believe in the rapture of the church. He doesn't believe Revelation applies anymore. He believes it happened in the Roman Empire. He doesn't believe that God's chosen people are the Jews anymore. I don't get into theological discussions with him. He's very into Kabbalah. Neither one of them go to church, and they have their reasons for doing so. They've been deeply wounded by churches. But what bothers me is he's tried to be a spiritual patriarch and start his own little shindig, and it's failed, because people spend enough time with him and go, man, this guy's opinionated, and he thinks he's right, and everybody else is wrong. And yet I respect him. He has a lot of smarts about everyday things. This guy can build his own house from the ground up right now. He will not move fast like I do, but he is meticulous and he can do stuff. He can route his electrical. He can route plumbing. The guy's in his 80s and he's still always doing projects. That room that I spotlighted last summer that tore out the floor, yeah, you got to see it now. I mean, both of them have their qualities. She's an outstanding cook, cooks him home-cooked meals every single day. Name one woman my age on down that cooks their man a home-cooked meal and will not submit to junk food and will not submit to Zappums to throw in a microwave. Both these people have their qualities, and God brought me back here. When I left in 2005, I didn't want anything to do with her again. I had seen things back then. I'm like, that woman's freaking nuts. But God brought me right back here, and I stayed as a guest, and within literally 2 days of me here, I was asked to stay. Stay as long as you want if you could help us with things around here. Wow, God, thank you for provision. And I'm glad for it. I like having people around. Because I'll tell you what it teaches me, viewers. That us on our own, including Pacific, if I live alone for a while, I start becoming girl. You know, that bothers me. You need to be challenged by being in the grind with humanity. We can't isolate and pull away, though I would love to. I many times would like to have just a job somewhere where I can be left alone, start a bulldozer up, a big DC 950, whatever, and push trash around and be like, I'll put on a headset. Hey, get out of here, seagulls. I don't want your poop on me. And yet God doesn't let it happen. God thrusts me. I want to show you something. You viewers might not know this. Let me cap off the senior citizens. God has blessed me through them. Yes, it's been tough. I come home, the whole kitchen's blown out. She decides to go on a baking frenzy, and there's a little bit of immaturity and childishness. She'll go make this big old mess, So I didn't feel like cleaning it up. I'm so tired, I'm not going to do it now. Well, there's flour all over the floor, flour all over the island, stuff's burnt and spilled all over the stove. I mean, blitzkrieg. I clean the stove. I get the kitchen ready for her next company shindig. That night I'll go to cook, and she goes, "Oh, I don't want you making a mess on that stove." I said, "Have I ever made a mess?" "Well, we all do." I said, "Have I ever made splatter all over the wall and the stove?" "Well, no, but I've seen stuff, and I know that you've had stuff splatter." I said, "I have always wiped up anything I've splattered immediately." I said, "I came in here the other day, and it looked like a bomb went off on the thing." "Well, that's because everybody used it." I said, "I didn't do any of that." I said, "Come here." I said, "Let me show you all this burnt on stuff." I said, "That was you when the beans went over the pot." I said, "None of that's mine." I tell you what, living with people is difficult as hell. And I don't care who it is. And if you think that getting involved with one of these pretty women is going to make your life pretty, man, pretty women can be some of the biggest pain in the asses out there, hands down. I mean, it's crazy. I'm going to say something that's going to shock my viewers. Please understand the context, because I'm sure my trolls will cut and splice this out and say, he calls himself a Christian. Blah! Have fun with this, trolls, because I'm going to say it. When I see the direction that good-looking women in America have taken, there are times I said, God, I wish you'd take them out. I wish that you would give them some severe trial in their life that would really attack them at the heart of their vanity, meaning take away their good looks that they've just been so proud of in a wrong, ungodly way, and snubbed us males and held it in front of our face as a carrot and said, Pat, you're not good enough to have me. I wish God would just go bam and just swat them all off the planet. I am a nice guy and I'm a hard worker, but I am tired of immature, narcissistic, good-looking women treating us like cattle dung. I hate it. It is not biblical, and Christian women are doing the same darn thing. I see it in our church with the women that think they're all that in a stick. They will not look at me. They will not say hi. All this little bull crap that goes through their head that every man wants to get down their pants, that every man's so in love with me and I'm going to ignore them. You can't even say hi. You can't even smile in a church of God. Wow. First world problems. First world problems right here in this house. There's times I go into the kitchen, there's one bowl in there, and there's 25 pieces of silverware. 10 spoons, 15 forks, blah, blah, blah. What in the world? You think people don't have their crazy habits? I'll be in the kitchen talking to her husband, and she'll come out and say, you're talking too loud. And I said, what? I said, your TV is full blast. I can't even hear myself talk over it. And I asked her, I said, why do you complain about my voice or somebody else's voice, but that TV's louder than any of us have talked in this house, even when we're laughing and cutting up? Well, when I lay down, I can't hear the TV. I said, lay down. The TV's up on the pedestal facing you. I mean, I can hear it blasting through most of the house. I'll tell you what, toddlers are tough, senior citizens are tough. He's sharper than her. And I tried to talk with him yesterday. I said, you know what? I'm sorry, but sometimes this gets tough. He goes, well, she is getting older, and yes, there's a degree of craziness with all this, and, you know, he said, you've done enough today. Don't worry about it. And he says, yeah, it is crazy. All of a sudden need to paint all the chairs, but he says, you know, I don't want to criticize. I don't want to go on criticizing her. I don't agree with it, but, you know, you did enough today. You go out and have fun. I think my viewers needed to know that. I think that my viewers needed to know that, no, I'm not sponging. I pay all my own stuff. People think I'm getting a free ride here. No. I worked my butt off on this property. I pay all my own expenses. No, I don't take from them. I earn whatever keep I get, and I also pay all my stuff. No way. So Butt Pirate making that comment was a typical immature, low-life Pizza Hut boy that wrecks and dents up his car and is offending every single one of his friends. Yeah. So you can take that comment with a grain of salt. But let's talk about other things here. We touched on the charismatic being an emotional driven theology. It is. It's euphoric. It's got to be experiential. And why is that? Because Americans want their entertainment button pushed. They want their fun meter pegged. Then you get into the Midwestern part of the United States, and I'm sorry if I'm stepping on people from Minnesota, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, and those parts of the country. But I was in that area. I lived up in Minnesota, and I tell you, they're stoic. Typically, not much emotion. And it's easy for them to get up on Sunday and play the game of spending 2 hours in front of the bathroom, dressing nice, going to church. How are you doing? I'm doing well. And no emotion showed. You just come in there and you hear a sermon and you walk right back out and go into your own world. Pacific is not wired that way. More than a lot of men I know, I have a lot of emotion. And it's tough because when we talk about cultures, Pacific has been in a lot of culture. I've been in Chinese culture. I've lived in a neighborhood where a lot of Hispanics were. I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood in north of City Park and the golf course in Denver. And I've worked in work environments where the predominant majority was blacks and Hispanics, and I was the minority. I worked at one bus garage where 90% of them were black, and there was one or two of us white people. My point is that I'm thrust in cultures all the time. Now I'm in the truck culture, mostly white men. And or their wives if they work as the receptionist secretary of the mechanic shop or the dealership, whatever. Pacific knows that no matter where I go, even if I wanted to run, there's nowhere to hide. And if God is trying to teach us a lesson, he will deposit you right back where you left off. A friend of mine in Prescott, Arizona, back in 1989, I got all this flack from people, Christians mostly. Are you sure it's God's will to move to Duluth? Are you sure? Are you sure? Yeah, doubt. I said, I don't know if it's God's will. I'm moving. I'm single. I have no attachments here. I'm leaving. I have no doubt Duluth was the will of God. I was alone, and I was away from my parents, even though that was a dysfunctional mess. I was on my own. I had to problem solve all by myself. I couldn't depend on anybody to pay my rent. And you know what? I saw the hand of God so much in those early years of my life in Duluth. I remember summer was so god-awful hot. I'd never been through heat like that. Yes, I grew up in Arizona, spent the latter years of my high school days and a few of my adult years in Prescott. And you get up to 104, 105, and you go down to Phoenix where it's 110 or whatever, and you're like, gosh. But Duluth, you have Lake Superior, and there were sometimes 2 weeks out of the year, more so in August, where if that breeze stopped blowing across that ice, I used to call Lake Superior my big bowl of Freon, because in the summer when that breeze is blowing in off the lake, it cools the town down nice. But if that breeze moves and comes from the south and blows that lake cool air towards the north, Duluth is going to be hotter than hot. 90 degrees plus, 100% humidity, no air conditioning in most of the apartments up there because it's more of a cold town than it is a hot town. And I'm dying. I go to work. I'm not sleeping. There's squirrels up in the attic knocking stuff over, making noise at 2 o'clock. And I'm like, wow, man. And I'm laying there in bed going, wow, God, you are pouring it on. I'm in my underwear. I go to the bathroom and turn on the cold water faucet for the tub and run my head under it. And within 2 minutes, I'm roasting hot again. And I wanted out. I even called my dad and said, man, I hate it up here. I want out of here. And to his credit, he said, well, you know, I can get up there and rent a U-Haul trailer and get your stuff and bring you back. This heat continued. And one night I was laying in bed and I had my bed pushed all the way up against the slide up. The window was in a 100-year-old building. Creaky floorboards and the whole thing. And I laid there just dying. And then all of a sudden I felt the wind start to blow. It was dark. And I saw lightning. And then I heard the... And I'm like, oh God, please. I'm sharing this story because in this day and age, with everybody and their modern conveniences and AC, they don't really appreciate this. I heard the thunder get louder and closer, and the wind started blowing hard, and then I heard the first splatter of raindrops, and it started to pour, and I felt that cool breeze blast in my window, and I just stood there and put my face and chest into that window and went, yes! And I said, oh God, thank you. Thank you, God be praised. You spoke to me. You came to me. You brought deliverance tonight. I went to work the next day, and everybody says, what are you so happy about? I said, that rain last night was an answer to prayer. I'm dying. I have seen the hand of God. I lived in Duluth 5 years before I was married to the second wife. And I want to make it very clear that I was laughed at a lot. I had bigger glasses than I do now because the factory bought us glasses where the lenses pop out instead of in, safety glasses. They weren't safety glasses in the technical sense, but my prescription was thicker then because the technology wasn't there, so they were big. They looked like Coke bottles. I didn't look at stuff like that. I'd see women with glasses, and I thought, wow, she's cute. In Duluth, I remember walking down the street one day, and a carload of idiots pulled up and said, wow, those are pretty thick glasses. You look like a real dork. And I remember thinking to myself, what possesses somebody to come up to a perfect stranger and just say that? Kind of like when the black guy came into the dealership. Don't know him. He's coming to pick up trucks. I said, hi, how you doing? My name's Civic. And first thing out of his mouth is, what are you wearing that chain around your neck for? Is this a trick question? Because I can. And I was talking to Laidlow the other day and said, you know, when that's somebody's first, he goes, when somebody's asking like that, he said, the first thing I start thinking is, oh, now it's a racial issue. What's a white guy doing and wearing a gold chain? Only we can do that. I want to say something to my viewers because we have many people of ethnicity on here. And just so you know, I'm ethnic too. This idea that ethnicity means only black people or Asians or Hispanic, white people are an ethnicity. Because every job application I filled out, what is your ethnicity? Denver has a hang-up. Yesterday when I went to the Dragon Boat and I wandered on down through the booths and all the different carnival stuff and rides and things going on, I see one thing is attracting people. There's music, and I like music, and it says cultural unity. And it was all the different rappers and hip-hoppers, and I watched, and some of them were good. But I asked myself, because I'm objective, at the end of the day, what are these guys contributing to the good of society? Because they could spin around on their head and their finger and all that. Watching guys with hairy chests and their shirt fall up and their hairy armpits exposed as they're dancing around, I'm just kind of like, oh, that's kind of gross. But some of them were quite talented. And it was drawing a crowd of white, Asian, Hispanic, and black people. Then I'm watching women that are very heavy because they opened it up and people are getting out there trying it. To their credit, I give them credit. I'm like, shoot, I wouldn't go out there and try that. Heck, no. But you watch the people that went out and did it, and everybody's going, yeah. And they're walking around like they're a rock star, and I'm thinking, but do they work hard? Because I watch it, I go, shoot, I can't do any of that stuff. And I corrected myself. I said, you can do a lot more than they can. Trust me. The entertainment culture is the god of our day right now. People don't want to get jobs, so they'll spin around and do little Cirque du Soleil rap style, and they're going to make money that way. Whether they do or don't, I don't know. Today, somebody going to work and working hard is no longer glamorized in our entertainment-driven culture. Instead, we want to see a big-boobed woman with cleavage showing and nipples poking through that tight-fitting top she has on, eating a bunch of cockroaches on live TV. There's something really messed up about that. Who are we going to vote off the island? The weakest link. Get rich, draw attention to myself, everything. And what's funny is I was talking to Mr. Laidlaw. I said, you notice everybody's calling me narcissistic out there? I said, if I wanted to be a narcissist, the last thing I do is start stepping on people's toes. Oh, thanks. Because narcissists are in love with themselves, and narcissists want everybody else to be in love with them, too. I'm certainly not trying to get everybody to fall in love with me by the things I'm saying. But yet, if you dig deeper and you look at my classic trolls that are sitting on the fence at all watches of the day, rather, they're the narcissists. Because I'm the focal point on a daily basis of their lunacy, idiocy, and behavior that just shows them for what they are. Crazy stuff. Got a bunch of notes. You think it doesn't make me mad when the trolls say, Pacific can't get a girlfriend? There is some truth to that. That's why I released the video. To challenge these things they're saying and say, no, this is why I can't get one. It's not because of what the trolls say. The trolls themselves are making their own videos saying they're afraid of dying alone. So don't miss that double standard hypocrisy thing going on. When Loremaster can't get a girlfriend, maybe your oversized weight has something to do with it. Maybe the level of attack you've leveled against me that is perverted, disgusting, and awful. Women meet you and go, you're gross. Why would I want to go out with you? Because if you're doing this stuff on the internet, making such crude, perverted stuff, how do you relate with women? Let's go back to that piece about American culture is very good at telling everybody what to do. I've been in church after church. I've been around people after people. You just meet somebody. Let me give you an example. There's a woman, I don't even see her anymore. She's at the first service of my church. She got up and gave a testimony saying that she had done some things wrong as a mother and as a wife. And, well, no, not as a wife. She said she wasn't a very good mother. Of course, she blasted her husband pretty good, like most Americans do. It's always the man's fault. But I went up to her after the service. I said, it was neat to see you be so transparent. I don't see that in our culture, so thank you. And she goes, really? Thank you. Hugged me. She goes, well, do you have any kids? I said, oh, yeah, I'm going through a tough time. And then she immediately starts trying to tell me what to do. And I said, I didn't come up here to ask for your advice on this. I just simply wanted to praise you for being transparent. Well, are you involved in a men's group? Are you accountable? I said, no, and I'm not going to do that right now. Women, I got to tell you something. I don't know if you have got this in your mind. We men don't want you to boss us around. There's not a sign over my head that says, please guide and instruct me, because I really desperately need it. I came up to give you a compliment. Accept it. Thank me. Go forward. You're going to tell me what to do with my son when you still haven't gotten it right? No. And I love my son. In order to get him enrolled in the school, he has to make an art project and submit it online. I said, what's the holdup? Well, I don't know the site. I said, actually, your mother said she gave you the site, and you're going to have to go to the library or to a friend's house that has a computer. You could even do it on mine. No effort to get it done. So I left a message this morning. I said, if you don't get this done within a week, I'm going to enroll you in school you don't want to go to down the street, and you're going to have to go. And if you want to skip, you're going to deal with truancy court. And I called this probation officer to say I'm frustrated. I'm doing everything I can, but I can't get a fire under his butt to get things done. If anything would give me a reason to have a visa and get out of here, even to this day, if God gave me a visa on a silver platter, I'm going to say, Lord, you are so good. You can have my truck. I'm out of here. But I stayed and I went through the counseling sessions. I've called that probation officer every single day and said, here's what's going on, here's what's going on, here's what's going on. I have been involved in my son as much as I can be and said, son, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I'm going to say to my viewers, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can tell your children all the right things, but you can't make them do it. Problem is, I told the probation officer in a voicemail today, I would like you to come up with an idea of how we can solve this problem where we're not the brunt of the consequences, i.e., if you skip school, my ex-wife can't keep taking off work to go to truancy court because that jeopardizes her job, and I can't do that. So can we have something custom designed for him, like put him in that 24-hour or 7-day-a-week facility where they force you to go to school and put you in lockdown? You know, we've got to do something that has teeth to it. So I will wait and see what he says. I'll tell you what, dealing with teens is tough. It's even tougher when it's your own. And I love my son. I love him dearly. But I said to my ex the other day, I said, do you know where he's headed? Becoming a dependent on the state. You know, he's more interested in hanging out with his friend and making some little MIDI music things, and it's like, well, great, but you're not making money at that. Go get a job, do that as a hobby, and if that takes off, quit your job and make $1 million. But Venus Star told me to stay, and I did. Because I felt that she had the mind of the Lord on it, and I said, you know what, I hate this. And to the woman of the house's credit, I went to her husband last November, and I said, man, I'm just going to get out of here, and I told him. And he said, all right, I can get all that stuff off your top or all that wood I've stored on it, and I'll help you get it on there. And if you want to load in the backyard, okay. You know, I sure hate to see you go, but I know eventually you'll leave. And, you know, when you get to where you're going, just give me a call and tell me where you're at. She went to him, and he told me later, oh, yeah, she disapproves, thinks you're running. And I said, and I found myself chafing inside. I'm going to tell you something. When you're chafing inside, it's usually because you've just been told something that's straight from God, and you're not accepting it. It sucks. Now, there are things that make me mad that are not coming from God, that other people do that are just wrong. But let's focus in on struggle. This man was not just a man. He said, why do you ask what my name is? And then he named it Penuel, because he struggled with God and was allowed to live. He knew who that man was. God showed up at the table. God will touch your tendon. He will go right to the source of whatever you're basing your life on. Did you know that the name Jacob means cheater, deceiver? Go back and read the life of Jacob. Man, he snookered Esau out of his birthright. Oh, fine, I'll give you this nice meal I made if you give me your birthright. Okay, I don't care. No wonder Esau was ticked at him. His own mother was part of that whole scheme. Had him dress up like Esau to steal the blessing. But Jacob got his. He had to work for Laban. He says, fine, you can marry my daughter Rachel for 7 years of labor. And it seemed like one day. Wedding night comes and Leah slipped in the sleeping bag with him. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me. Well, no, the older one's got to go first. You work 7 more years, you're going to have Rachel too. Oh, goody, 2 for the price of 2. And talk about trouble. Those women were fighting back and forth as to who's going to have the next baby. Boy, we got all this counseling and all these whiny little baby pussy-wussy people today. Girls, and I was in a bad relationship. Oh my gosh, read the Bible. They had no counseling services. They had no child protection services. They had none of that stuff. Can you imagine what Jacob went through when he had 2 wives fussing back and forth? Give me the mandrakes. No, I want the mandrakes. You can sleep with my husband. Okay, good. Here's the mandrakes. Good grief. Dysfunction junction. What's your dysfunction? I mean, this stuff was going on big time. And what do you think Jacob did with all that? I guarantee you he wasn't sitting in front of the house and TV set enduring this. He was out there doing what he does as a man. Probably came home and looked at his wives and said, "You 2 girls still fussing at each other? Get over it." I would like to go back to that culture, honestly, because men, they can just say, you know what? Today, it's a whole different ballgame. You go home, you're with your wife. Now she wants to watch some stupid little secular show, and she's got to have all her, secular expectations on her man. And when I say secular expectations, that now women are not satisfied with a husband to drive them around anymore. No, they want their own SUV and get in debt for that, which creates more stress, financial stress, more working, less time together. And by the time you both get off work, nobody wants to have sex or be intimate anymore because you're both fried. Marriage is not looked at today the way it was back then. Jacob loved Rachel. But can you imagine what Leah went through? Can you imagine what Leah went through? He thought that she was weak in the eyes or something. She had to know that Jacob was just not into her. That this was her father just said, here. This wasn't a BOGO, buy one, get one. He wanted the one object, and instead, he got sold the Prius. He's like, really? I get the Prius instead of the Charger? Come on, man. You think Leah didn't feel that? How do you think she felt as a woman, being second rate? Their own dad threw her under the bus and said, here, to a man who did not have his eyes on her at all. I'll tell you what, you can't force, the song by Phil Collins, the remake of the old, no, you can't hurry, love. Now you just have to wait. Love don't come easy. It's always a give and take. If I was living in a culture and I was throwing some girl, say some 350-pound woman, and I'm obligated to procreate with her, I can guarantee you that that'd be tough for me. But I don't think Leah was a dog in that sense. Because obviously, if he didn't have any attraction to her physically at all, I don't believe he would have had sex with her. So there must have been some arousal there. But the point is that Leah thought, I'm not his main man. How do you think she felt? You think she could just divorce and exercise her enlightened choice issue and say, man, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm out of here. Yeah, women today have gotten too big for their britches. Women today make drama and fuss and whine and counseling, got to have counseling and medications and all this. But you look back in the Bible, there was none of that. Leah and Rachel went back and forth competing, as sisters do, to vie for their husband's attention and have baby after baby and outdo each other. It's very interesting, the middle name I chose for my son is Jacob. My son is bound and determined to get his way, just like Jacob. people don't realize this, but in the Old Testament, people were named names that came straight from the hand of God, who already knows the future. We throw names at kids today that are just stupid. Brittany, Remington, Colt. We name them after other people. I didn't do that. When I named my son, his first and his middle name, it came to me when I was in the shower that my then wife and I had agreed if it's a girl, it'll be named after her own sister. I had no problem with that. I got out of the shower and I said, I have a name for him. This is before he was delivered. She goes, wow, I think that's perfect. I said, you do? Because I figured if she doesn't like it, we'll go back to the drawing board. But I felt very strongly. His first name is off one of my favorite prophets in the Bible who did mighty things for God. And did you know that he even got depressed? That name has significance. I didn't just throw it at a dartboard. And it is my prayer that my son would come to saving faith in Christ and follow him, because now at this point, that is his only hope. He's shredding his education as we speak. Claims he's going to get his GED, has not made one step in that direction at all. I love my son. He's going to fiddle around for 2 years, and when 18 hits, he's going to go... Reality's going to hit him hard, because his mother is going to say, nope, you're not staying here. And it'll be the same with me. Nope, I'm not funding your butt. You got to do it, and I suggest you better start getting used to doing it now. It's going to be a lot easier than later. Now, we live in a culture where a lot of mothers will enable that. That is the worst thing you can do to your children. Let them fall, and let them fall hard, and if they hit the gutter, maybe they'll bounce back. But the bottom line is, you cannot change a heart, Mom and Dad. You can mold them. Watching all this play out, it's like I can only do what I can do. And I'm not dissing my son. I love him. I want him to succeed. He talks about these expensive cars, and I very quietly inject, but you're going to need to make a lot of money to do that. Well, I know I'm going to do this. I said, don't talk about it. Show me the money. Quit talking about all these things you're going to do. Do it. So when somebody tells me to stay, yeah, that's huge, because I didn't want to. I was that close to flying out of here in my truck. That close. Called my friend in Texas. I said, I feel like God wants me to stay. Pacific is a man. Pacific has his faults, he has his flaws, he has his struggle, he has his fears. I don't have a fear of dying alone. My biggest fear is losing my physical abilities. My biggest fear is, man, I don't want to end up in the gutter. But let's get real about something. Let's talk about somebody I know. An old woman who's a sister of an old woman that I know, languishing away in a nursing home. Husband hardly ever goes out to see her. Husband was mean to her all the years of their marriage. Abusive, verbally, called her ugly, put her down. She was no picnic either. Her own children will not come and see her. But her older sister is the one who's down there bringing her food, trying to bring her little peppy visits. And I've gone down there sometimes. Watching this woman in a nursing home is utterly depressing. The smells in there of urine and feces and old people smell, and TVs blaring out of every single room. And I'm like, oh my gosh. This isn't even a good place to die, let alone be taken care of. Put me on a frickin' island under some banana trees in the Philippines, and at least I can die with dignity. But if I gotta go out that way, I'll jump into the surf and swim out until I can't swim anymore and go blub, blub, blub. Shark bait. Pacific Ocean, Asia will become part of the Pacific and be pooped out by a great white shark somewhere on the bottom of the ocean that bears my name. Woohoo. There are places in this country that are horrible to be in, and a nursing home is one of them. Wrestle with God. Ask Him to bless you. But cooperate with Him. We cannot deceive ourselves. Those Christians that play their little Sunday niceties, don't think for a minute they don't struggle or wrestle with God. They just hide it. Because a Christianity that's been manufactured in the States is simply that. Manufactured. Man, you factored it. You did it, man. Think about that. Break it down. Is God driving your life or not? And if He isn't and you're a child of God, be prepared for the day when He reaches down and goes, click, and touches that, whatever it is in your life. I'm going to be very honest about what I'm about to say, and you women might want to cover your ears. Some women are so stuck on themselves that God has to bring them breast cancer to bring them down to earth again. Those boobs you got, they're pretty, they're nice, and you've been sticking them in everybody's face and flaunting them. That is against the will of God. As for all the people that want to condemn me at looking at porn, not one thing said about the women that go into it, except now we're hearing a growing chorus of most of them are forced into it. Bull crap. Most women that go into the porn industry in the United States do so voluntarily because the money is damn good. Thank you very much. Next convicting issue is that women are not convicted about lifting their shirts, but men are convicted and condemned by women for men looking at them lifting their shirts. What part of hypocrisy do you not understand? Pornography is wrong. All of it. Those that participate in it, as well as those that look at it. Those that create the sites. But we don't talk about that. We just talk about the Christian caught looking at the nude images that were there. You think I don't struggle with God? There are times I say, well, God, you know, you're not going to bring me a wife. So what if I look at a porn image? I'm tired of being alone. Hey, we've all got our struggle. And the pastor said something profound today. He said, what is your name? Is it liar? Is it thief? Jacob was a cheater. Notice something in this admission. Notice something. Verse 26, Genesis 32. Then he said, the man of God, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So he said to Jacob, what is your name? This is confession time. He knew what his name was, but he wanted a confession to Jacob. Because back then, those people knew what their name meant. My name is Jacob. In other words, he said, my name is cheater, man. Manipulator, conniver, deceiver. And what happens? When God gets a hold of us, regardless of your past, He gives us a new name. We're not cheater. We're not liar anymore. We're a prince. Bear with me. Verse 28, and he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Israel. The name of the nation that bears His name. Israel also means struggles with God, and it also means prince. Most of us Christians are down on ourselves, down on our failures, down on our past, down on our parents, down on experiences, and yet, Pastor said something very profound in his lesson today that really struck me. You are not defined by your past. You are prepared by your past. I'm like, eh? Did it ever occur to my viewers that for those that are laughing and mocking my soap opera, that a lot of you are here because of where I went through, that if I had grown up in a middle-class, loving, perfect home, I wouldn't be on YouTube. Did you know that? If I'd had the good life and made all the right choices, would I be here? What for? So this is true. You are defined. You are not defined by your past. You are prepared by your past. God brought me through all that to prepare me for something. But I struggle. I get in my truck yesterday and I said, Lord, I'm tired of working for somebody's narcissistic vanity over a garden and lawn furniture and all this crazy stuff. Why can't I go spend the rest of my energy, my life, and even die in some Ethiopian village where I'm actually doing something, helping them dig a well or do something that actually makes a difference to people that don't live as well as we do? I'll get rid of my truck. I would gladly go somewhere and spend my life talking about the truth, helping the villagers, and sleeping in a village where at night there's no sounds of cars, no sounds of cell phones, and that I'm not even doing a YouTube video to get back to people. There's a part of me that wants to literally despair. Just think if I did do YouTube videos, all these trolls that are in the States would really start to buzz off then, because now I'm far away and I'm doing something. What are they going to say now? Then they really make themselves look ridiculous. But the bottom line is God has a plan for me. I don't know what it is. There are times I go, God, this is pathetic. Work all week, loan on the weekends. People are nice at church, but even the pretty single girls won't talk to me. What is the point? Being around Americans who fuss and futz and panic and worry and freak over their little tiny kingdom down here, when I'm part of God's kingdom, and I'd rather go somewhere where I can be appreciated at my fullest potential and extent. But it just proves more that I don't know the mind of God. That God's reason for me being here is not always made known to me. But if there's one thing I've learned of staying here with these couple is I have a doer for an appreciation for them that I didn't have in 2005 when I left. But in 2005, I would have been very judgmental that they didn't go to church. But how many people that go to church and really talk a lot about Jesus will open up their home and let somebody live there for 3 years? I don't know too many people that would do that. American Christians, American people that are middle class on up, they're generally quite selfish. They don't want to be imposed upon in any way. That's not what Jesus came to do for us. Jesus did not come to give us your little comfort zone and coddle it for you. And if you read about the life of Jacob, his life was not coddled. God let him have it. God let him have exactly what he dished out by Laban deceiving him, lying to him, and giving him the daughter, making him work for 14 years. Well, Laban and Jacob made an agreement over sheep, and Mr. Manipulator came up with a way to triumph. He says, I'll take all of the less than perfect ones. Okay. And that was part of the mandrakes and the leaves and all this different stuff to cause them to breed. And all of a sudden, in time, Jacob's herds outnumbered Laban, and Laban finally said, hey, it's time for you to get on down the road, son-in-law, because now you're starting to move in on my territory, and we're not going to have that. Rachel had her own problems. They leave. Laban says, hey, where's the household gods? And Rachel sits on them with all her ballooned out wear on and says, I'm having my period. I can't get up. Classic female stuff. This video is different because we're talking about things that is all truth. Pacific, it's not that he can't get a girlfriend. It's that geographically, yeah, I'm stuck. I could go to Hong Kong and within a week, I could have a girl that would be dating me on a serious, steady basis. Within 1 week. All I'd have to do is hang out at karaoke, meet a nice girl, and I would make her my full focal point, and she would be into me. She'd be calling me all the time when her employer's not there while she's doing her domestic duties, and on her 1 day off, she would be hurrying out of there. In fact, I'd be going to her place where I could meet her at the bus stop and get her. No, it's not that Pacific can't get a girlfriend. It's that the dynamics in the U.S. have changed, that girls aren't interested in me. Girls are into themselves. And girls in America are really all about themselves anymore. And that's why when I look at my past has given me the guts to say these kinds of things, to make more observations. Being alone has its advantages. If you're outside of Christ, it'll eat you up. But when you have Christ, I desperately want somebody. When I say desperately, I don't mean, I'll just choose anybody. I want to share my life with a woman. But I also realize that my loneliness, my struggles, the rejection that's been thrown at me all my life, the made fun of and teased, has given me a bigger ability to relate to and to speak to people who have been through the same thing. That if I'd had the good life, I wouldn't have met any of you all that talk to me to this day and get so much satisfaction out of this, including the losers that watch this for mock purposes. If I had had the perfect life, you wouldn't be entertained by my videos. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a win-win for me. More and more people have still written me in the private comments where they can go direct to my channel, write me direct. It said, don't listen to those fools that are attacking you. When I came across your channel, I was depressed, and now I have something to look forward to. And your words, and you're talking about God and your own struggles and your own ups and downs, it's given me strength to face the days. Trust me. Advisor, lore master, butt pirate, they're not doing that. Not at all. Because their words aren't the words of eternal life. Their words don't have the power of the Holy Spirit behind them. Their words aren't based on a connection with the mighty God. Pacific has its flaws. Pacific has its problems. And I should reiterate when I said about advisor, I have no doubt he's a Christian, but as I've proven, some Christians can act like lunatics on the social media, and we see evidence of that. There was a gentleman, his name was Victor, white guy, lived in Indiana. He'd come into CC9, the Christian chat room in Yahoo. And I liked Victor, but he was a wingnut. He'd come in the room and type in big letters, CC9, children of Satan, everybody's going to hell. And when I watched this guy, I had a lot of friends in the chat room, and I had a lot of people that didn't like me either. But I just put them on ignore. We called it Iggy. I said, that guy is going on Iggy. You ignore them and you can't hear them or see their text. Victor, get on the microphone and say, children of Satan. And we did have similar beliefs, but he went to the Church of Christ and believes if you're not baptized, you're going to hell. And I said, Victor, we've been at a private discussion. We're talking, and he started becoming belligerent. I said, you know what? I'm done with you. Yep, see, you can't handle me. I said, no, you're being a horse's butt. But he came in there for years, and I used to laugh. Children of Satan, everybody's going to hell. He was a bit of a lunatic. Christians, just because they're Christians, their motives can sound right and everything, but God is the one who weighs the heart. And then, here's something that really shocked me. My pastor said something today, and I thought about this last couple weeks of ongoing saga on YouTube. He says people tend to judge actions, but God looks at the heart. Be glad doesn't look at us based on our actions and say, you're done. But people do. Oh no, Pacific looked at nipples. Yep. God isn't done with me. People can be done with me. I'm okay with that. You should not be putting anybody on a pedestal. I don't care if it's your favorite preacher on Sunday morning, on TV, or your local church. Nowhere in the Bible are we supposed to make a rock star out of anybody. I'm going to say things that not everybody is going to agree with. Every one of my fans that I like and know a little bit more of, I'm not going to agree with every belief system they have. But make a rock star out of me? No. Put me on a pedestal? No. Think because I'm uttering the very things of God from time to time that I'm perfect and walk blameless? I wish. But God's still purging and cleansing me, and He's still working on me. But I default to something. There are viewers that have influence on me, and I don't always talk about them, but I wanted to do a shout out to Venus Star. She told me to stay, and I did. Because I am getting older, and I am getting a little bit wiser. And I'm starting to realize, you know what? I want to go when God opens the door and hands me that permission slip. Pacific, you did all I needed to do. Did a good job. I have a new assignment for you. Because I want His blessing. Some of the struggle I've gone through, I said, I want the blessing, man. I don't want to run out of here and run away. Oh, I want to leave. I want to run, but I won't because I know that invariably I don't want to be brought back here a third time. I want to learn this lesson. I want to graduate from this sucky school and get out. But it's going to be a lot better when God is the captain of that expedition. My friend in New York is trying to Here's a comment. One of my fans just texted me. God hates angry and bitterness between the brethren. I'm seeing that on YouTube as well. That's true. When Christians are warring against each other, that doesn't please God at all. Not even a little bit. Mr. Laidlaw was telling me last night about Canada that lesbianism is proliferating up there because girls don't want to get pregnant and they don't want to be involved with a man. And honestly, what I'm seeing is people are taking the easy way out. We don't want to commit, don't want to get married, don't want to do things the traditional God-fearing way. I'm going to do what's convenient and expedient for myself. And as much as I've said that I think it's really attractive to see two women kiss each other, deep down in my heart, I know that that's not God's ideal. It's wrong. I saw a lot of lesbians yesterday. Very good-looking blondes holding hands. Everything down at the Dragon Boat. We're living in a new day, and if you stand at all on Christ, you're going to get attacked and pummeled in this culture. It's going to happen. But everybody would rather watch a bunch of people breakdancing that aren't really contributing to the collective, contributing collective good to the good of society. Our society has not got their head in the right place. I don't always talk about everything I know. But there are times when the timing is right to air things that, you know what, we need to come out with this. Last night I walked 4.8 miles. My friend in Tennessee quit smoking and went on the 9.5-mile hike into the woods in Tennessee and past waterfalls and everything. Last night when I walked around the lake, the sun was setting, the cloud formation looked good, and there was a lull of quiet as people were going home and getting off the path. And it was beautiful. Forgive me, viewers, I'm a little sleepy today. It's Sunday. Sunday's the day when my body, the diesel engine, goes into shutdown mode. I'm starting to see the value of having your own personal Sabbath. There is no legalism to be the ruler of that, but grace. You should choose one day a week where you stop working, stop doing chores, and just rest. Nap, listen to the Word, try to talk to God, and I wrestle with God, you betcha. Anytime you're in a relationship with anybody, not just the Lord, you're going to wrestle. Bringing two imperfect people together and throwing them in the same building together, there's a recipe for disaster. I don't care if I lived with any of my favored viewers. After a few weeks of being in there, we're going to grind against each other from time to time. Oh, gosh. That bothers me. He does this, she does that. Those of you that are in relationships, you have to depend heavily on the grace of God, even more so than us single guys. Heavily. Trying to love your spouse in the way Jesus wants you to. Being submissive to your spouse the way Jesus wants you to. Being respectful to each other, reverencing. Women reverencing their husband the way they're supposed to reverence God. That's tough. But if you don't submit to God, and you keep wrestling with Him, He'll touch you. It could be breast cancer, it could be paralysis, you could be in a wheelchair, or you walk with a limp. I don't want us to have a superstitious faith that, oh, I got out of the will of God, now He's going to discipline me and send me into a coma. We don't know what God will do with you or with me. We know on a biblical basis where the end game is all going to end up, and that's in His kingdom. But the outflow of our physical lives, none of us can predict that. We can make some pretty safe statements if you don't get a job and you don't try to apply yourself that you're going to be a bum for the rest of your life. That's a safe margin. Living with people is hard, but it's rewarding in that you learn to flex more. Have you ever seen storms? You all have. But have you ever watched a little sapling that they have the ability to bend? And you want to be an oak that puts down deep roots, but at the same time, sometimes those big trees, because they can't bend, they literally crack and snap and break. That sapling's just going, and others, some leaves being shredded off, it survives the storm. We need to have the qualities of both. We need to be oak. We need to have our roots down to bedrock. We got to have some bend to adjust. As my friend Luna in Hong Kong would say, that the Filipinos have learned to always adjust. That's how they have coping skills to deal with the cruel taskmasters some of them have with the Chinese. They say nothing to do. Luna would tell me, nothing to do, Pacific, nothing to do. We must adjust. We must accept. We in America, we don't take that too well. Women want to retool the men and tell the men the way they got to be. People want to retool everybody except themselves. And God forbid that you tell an American to adjust and accept. Last night, and I want to share this story with you about stupid culture out here. The idiot started shooting off those launchers, fireworks. I heard a I'm going to find that tonight. I don't care if I spend an hour and a half walking the neighborhood and find out which house that is. Go down one block behind me, go down the second block behind me, and I see a car stop beside the road with headlights on. I got my little pen flashlight. I'm swinging it so they can see me. Set up closer, it's a convertible, and the lady says, Pacific? Oh, yeah. Hi, how are you? She goes, you heard it too? I said, oh. She goes, I think it's that house right there. So we stand there. We're on the opposite side of the street. And we're not making any noise. But then we hear stuff in the backyard. Then we see the porch light come on after about 10 minutes of her and I chatting with each other. Guy walks out on the front porch, Hispanic. He's got an axe in his hand, and he's swinging it around and going like this. You can see him, the shadow of the porch light, no shirt on. I said, has he got an axe in his hand? She goes, it looks like it. And I said loudly, I said, so it's this house that's shooting him off? I said, do you know the address? She goes, yeah. And I said, good, I'll remember that. I said, if I hear one more of those, I'll just have the police go there. Many people in the neighborhood are tired of it, but people are so afraid. I said, I don't care if he walks right out on the street. We're on the street. I'm not on his property. And I said real loud, I said, let him come up and talk to me. I'll confront him right to his face. So you're a selfish bastard shooting off fireworks late at night, waking everybody up. What the hell is your problem? You wait 20 minutes and it's all quiet and boom, you shoot off another one? What is your problem? I said this loud enough for him to hear, and he paced back and forth on the porch, swinging the axe around. I thought, wow, you're so cool. Another retard in Denver that probably doesn't have a job, just some F-up, and you're out there making a macho statement. I'll tell you what, American men that don't get a job and don't respect their neighbors, they're dangerous. I had my shirt off, and I was on the passenger side, outside her vehicle, talking to her. Said, shoot, I'll sign a complaint, go to court. I said, I'm not afraid. And she says, you know what? I'm going to drive up the end of the street. Maybe if he sees us go, he'll do it again. I said, good call. I said, all right, take care. And I walked one way. She went the other way. Didn't hear another one all night. And do you know why? Because he heard me. He knows we finally focused on their house. I'm going to tell you something, Americans. You need to collectively get together and start doing things. This idea of submitting in fear and being afraid, I'll tell you what, don't go up and get in their face. Don't go up to their front door. Stand out there in the street and have a discussion. Say, yeah, this guy's being the idiot. Your neighborhood's an island. You can vote off the fool. You can't get him out of his house, but you can shut him down if you all stand up together. I didn't have to go to his door. I wanted to, and I say, you the one shooting off all that and making all that racket? I wanted to. But I was talking to her, and I just watched him. I thought, he's got a freaking axe in his hand? What the heck is that for? You'd be a fool to walk up to the front porch with somebody sporting that. But we didn't hear any more all night. But he heard me, and my fireworks was louder than his, because he didn't fire off any more that night because he knew that now two people, a guy and a woman, that did not get on his property, standing there talking about him loud enough for him to hear. He knows you shoot that off one more time, we're going to have your number. There's something wrong with humanity when they're not thinking that, it's quiet in this neighborhood. You really think everybody wants to hear that? 20 minutes of silence and then several people came out on the street, one block over, the one between us and the Clown Street, and said, you know what, we need to find many people were getting ready to mount up. And she told them, oh no, I'm going to go drive and look for it. I'll take care of it. People are getting tired of it. Hate to tell you something, Hispanics, 4th of July is one day a year. It doesn't go on and on and on. And if you want to shoot all your fireworks, go back to Mexico, have your little Cinco de Mayo and do it down there. But there's some of us that are also a different ethnicity, which you're not respecting, and you're promoting racism, and you're not respecting that this has been a white neighborhood for a long time, and we don't play that way. That hardworking people like to go to bed in this neighborhood, and if you want to go have your little fiesta, go to the other side. I'm not racist, but Pacific's going to say what he needs to say, and I'm going to say I agree with Donald Trump's assessment of the illegals and the criminals and all that, and I don't care if my Hispanic compatriots are offended. I've been offended by their behavior for a long time, but it doesn't seem I can get anything done about it. The favoritism the Hispanics show other people in the place I have of employment with the bus. We got a woman in there that's in one of the departments who I've often referred to as a slutty whore. She thinks she's all that in a bag of chips. She's sister of one of the alpha females in there. She is rude. She thinks she's hot stuff. And I can't stand her. And one day, I'm standing talking to an employee. She pulls up in her SUV and she goes like this to me. And I did not move. I thought, now, you can say, excuse me, I need to park there or something. But these women are disgusting human beings. They're racist against us whites. One of the guys in one of the departments has hired nothing but pretty Hispanic women, her being one of them. And I addressed that with a think tank discussion we've been having with somebody. I said, you need to look at this because I'm a white guy and I'm going to tell you I'm not seeing affirmative action. And the comment was made to me, oh, I've talked to him about it and said, I don't know if you're doing this, but it sure looks suspicious. He'll never come up, the guy at that department will never come up and say, hi, how are you? But he'll say hello to all the Hispanic girls. We need to talk about this, and we need, as white people, to start standing up and confronting the hypocrisy of the Hispanic community and the black community within our midst. I'm not going to pick on the Asians, because generally speaking, the Asian people start their businesses, have their community, and they pretty much mind their own business and aren't out there rocking the boat. But I've heard all my life how bad the white people are, and I'm watching the way these people are behaving, and I'm going, no, I'm not buying it anymore. Racism is all over the place, and we're seeing a healthy heaping dose of racism coming from the Hispanic community in Denver towards us white people, and I'm tired of it. I'm proud to be a white boy, and I'm going to say it. That doesn't mean that I think I'm superior to other ethnicities. Everybody knows I lived in China. Everybody knows I have a very soft spot in my heart towards Filipinas and women of ethnicity. And I've met some great people from Pakistan, India, Nepal that I loved. And a lot of them were guys that I was friends with over there. I'm not a racial hater. But I hate stupidity and I hate hypocrisy and I hate the favoritism that I'm seeing in the Hispanic community that's taking over the city and county of Denver. They're going like this, the white man's rules. Watch the way they drive the city of Denver garbage trucks. Speed limits don't mean anything. They'll pull right out in front of traffic. Somebody honks. I've seen these guys go like that in a city of Denver garbage truck. Wow. La Viva la Mexico, right? Take your crap and go back home. One of the worst things that we ever did in this country is when they started to vote to make English the national language, the Hispanics and all the bleeding heart liberals shot it down. And it's like, go to Hong Kong and see if you can mandate that we'll all speak English over there and not Chinese and see how far you get. Only in America do we shoot ourselves in the foot. Only in America does a guy go and kill Marine Corps who's connected to ISIS and nothing's done about it and not one statement's made from the White House. But Mr. Barack Obama's making a statement about Bill Cosby. Really? The lamest duck president ever. And I'm sorry, but I'm tired of the backlash about color and ethnicity and people saying, you said some offensive things about the black people. I'm sorry, black people have offended me almost all my life. And nothing, I don't have a right to speak. I don't hate people based on skin color, but I have seen a dynamic in the skin color camp called the Black America that is not pretty. Good grief. Louis Farrakhan, what a nut job. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, bloody fools, thank you very much. Michael Brown, who started a firestorm of major cost to the American public with drama, news coverage, and damage to storefronts of people who had nothing to do with the police department or the verdict or the color issue. Don't get me started. If a few of my black viewers are offended because I speak truth about some of the garbage in their community, oh well. I'm not racist. But I've seen a lot of stuff that goes on that's not cool. There are things I observe even with the drama that went on my channel with certain ethnicities coming to the defense of certain ethnicities and making comments behind my back, and I'm going, gee, this is exactly what I go through at my job. And I'm not allowed to make a direct link to that? Don't think so. I don't hate blacks. I'm not racist against blacks. I date some black women. I just called a friend of mine the other day who's older than me, and she's fun to be with. She's not a date, she's just a friend. Now, if I was racist, I wouldn't have anything to do with blacks. I don't support the KKK. I don't support the skinhead neo-Nazis. I don't support that stuff. They should be eradicated from America's shores. But I stick up for the underdog, too. Get rid of that damn Confederate flag. Why is everybody making an issue? You know, everybody's saying, oh, the blacks are making an issue about the flag. You guys are the ones making the issue about the flag. It was a racist symbol, the stars and bars. Why don't you get rid of it and try to reach across the aisle and say, you're right. This had to do with us being pro-slavery. We should probably put it away. If we live by Christian conviction as Christians, we might want to start looking at, the Bible says, if this causes somebody to stumble, don't do it. But when it comes to racial issues, the whistling Dixie crowd and their pickup trucks, they want to fly their little Confederate flag, even though it's been an offense to the black people. Yeah, I'm going to defend the black people on that one. Get rid of the freaking flag. The flag we should be flying is the United States. The red, white, and blue, and the 50 stars. You know, I'm sorry, South. Get over it. You lost the frickin' war. That means the icons that go with your little stance need to be flushed down the toilet. No, I step on everybody's toes, man. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, or Pacific. I step on myself. That's what makes this channel so awesome. This isn't a narcissist. This is a guy who tells it like it is. I'm not a Rush Limbaugh. I'm not the Howard Stern. You guys can figure out what I am on your own, but it doesn't mean it's so. I'm Pacific. I'm proud to be a white guy, and I'm tired of being shamed into being that. I'm tired of being snubbed and ignored by a growing Hispanic population in Denver. And I go into their neighborhoods and I see what goes on, that the incest and the rape and the molestation that goes on in the Hispanic community of dads, uncles, brothers towards girls in the Hispanic family is off the freaking charts. That was out of the mouth of a Hispanic coworker I work with, and I've seen it. That the Hispanic girls got the hoochies pushed so far up, and their biggest goal in life is to get more tats and piercings. Priorities much? Yeah, I've attacked white culture. I've attacked white women and verbally saying that they're flakes. But I also see problems in the black female community, the black male community, the Mexican macho. I'll tell you, some of the Mexicans that I get along with the best are the older, hard-working ones that mind their own business, that don't disturb their neighbors, and they're just trying to take care of the family, and they're God-fearing people. But the Hispanics are more American cultural problematic people. And then you get people from Chihuahua and Juarez, and they come over and they bring all their bad habits. And it's like, I'm trying to be as objective as I can. But when I feel that they're all pinching on me and racist to me and making comments in a break room, well, you wouldn't understand because you're a white guy. Really? You just made that comment to me and you think you can say that? I understand more than you know. Let's ask why you're celebrating Cinco de Mayo. Many of the locals call it Stinko de Mayo because of all the damage it's done, drive-by shootings, people with their low rider and their fuzzy dice going up and down Federal, and they get in a skirmish with their own kind and start shooting each other. And the people that live on the side streets in those neighborhoods complain about the beer bottles and condoms and jetsam and flotsam of Cinco de Mayo festivities thrown into their front yards. And my question to them is simply this. Celebrating Mexican independence in the United States of America. That makes about as much sense as me going down into central Hong Kong, shutting down all the streets, making a bunch of noise, throwing trash everywhere, and saying, 4th of July! Ha ha! I'm American. I wonder how much the Chinese would allow me to get away with that one. Only in America are we the most hypocritical, stupid, enabling country in the world that allows ourselves to shoot ourselves in the foot, let all these ethnicities come in and destroy our way of life, rewrite and retool the Constitution. We have a president that we're not even sure where in the hell he was born get into this office. We've got questions surrounding 911 that even I'm starting to realize, was this manufactured by our government? I have no idea. The more I see the ineptness of our politicians that are all out for their wallet, these politicians aren't called by God. These politicians aren't people that did it with a pure motive. You've got to be kidding me. So when Donald Trump makes a comment about the illegals, wow, somebody's got a pair of balls. Donald Trump has his problems. I'm not going to get into that. And I'm sorry, but every time I see one of those Obama Biden stickers on the back of a car, the first thing I think of is another stupid idiot. I mean, anybody who voted for him and then did it again, something's wrong in the mental department. That even black people, a guy in Chicago that asked me why I'm wearing this, when I talked to him later and we got down to the brass tacks, he even said, Barack Obama hasn't done anything to improve anything since he's been in office. That from a black male. Somebody this week made a comment to me in an email. Why do you got to say I'm a black woman? Why can't you just treat me as I do treat you as a person, but I make that statement. And I have my reasons for doing so, and it's not a racial motivated reason. Sometimes the blacks get too overly sensitive about things coming from a white guy's mouth, and I'm frankly sick of it, Scarlett. But I've heard a lot of people make a lot of statements about us that are just over the top. Not only are they not politically correct, but they're just wrong. And people should be fired for some of the things I've heard in my break room. When I see alpha queen black female who's been outbid of a route and sent packing to another terminal, I'm like, good riddance. This is a woman who is a classic ghetto queen. Talks ghetto, looks ghetto, spends more on her outfits than anything else, is a spoiled brat, got Mercedes and Jeeps and everything, thinks that she's better than me, thinks that she's better than everybody else, talks at the top of her lungs, will walk right over to my table when I'm having a discussion with somebody quietly, will stand right there and talk like this, full blast. And I said, excuse me, we're trying to talk. We don't want to hear you. I'm watching our America come apart. I'm watching our America under attack. I'm watching the authorities in our land let everybody and anybody come in here with their ideology and their cultural nuances and shred white culture. Don't get me wrong. The white yuppie, the stuck-up white woman culture, that's the one that needs to be shredded. That's the one that needs to be taken to task. The white business elites in this country that are lining their wallets, not caring about their grandchildren and the rest of us that get to inherit the mess that they've left behind. I have something to say about white people. How selfish of you. You're not an American, because if you look at George Washington and you look at the others and they had their flaws, they were about protecting the republic, not corporate dollars. And to the Hispanics and black people that want to scream and yell about how evil the white people are, may I politely remind you that all of our founding fathers were neither ethnicity. They were European descendants. And they drafted a pretty damn good constitution that you all get to take advantage of. And it was white people that set up the electrical systems, the sewer systems, the transportation systems, the roadway systems, the public education systems, the libraries, the fire departments, all that stuff that you come to depend on was not put up by you. Oh, you've helped and stuff like that in the sense of labor, but the white man designed all of that in America. And I'm starting to get a more accurate view. That doesn't mean we're superior. The white man has also done a lot of things wrong. The British weren't very nice. They just conquered everything. Says, oh, we want that. Sorry, we're taking over. Took over Hong Kong, took over many places in Africa, India. The British weren't nice at all. UK is shameful, shameful place. Their empire is gone. All they have now is the UK and the Falklands, and they're losing that as well. They're losing the UK to the modernization of a self-seeking, narcissistic culture. The girls in the UK are no different than here. Spoiled, rotten, vile little brats. This whole world is changing very fast. And just like that black guy said at the storage lot the other day when I was getting trucks ready, he said, if our government can get us all to focus on the racism, which really isn't the problem, then it keeps us from looking at what the real problem is, and it's our leaders and their connection to corporate America and favoring them. And I said, there you go. Racism is a sidebar. It is real, but it's not the problem. The problem is the corporate big shots, and the liberal media loves to keep this going to draw attention away from their hypocrisies. And if you think that the media culture, the evening news that you listen to, NBC, ABC, and CBS, isn't pulling the strings on this, you'd better wake up and eat some more porridge, because you're spoon-feeding yourself mush. The media in this country loves stories, and they like drama, and they like news coverage. And to run 24-hour news stations, you have to always come up with scenarios and fear-mongering and all that. That's why we have panels of people coming on saying that I predict a big earthquake. That's why we have people, we suddenly realize that, did you know your power grid is vulnerable? Wow, I didn't know that. Now I have something else to be intrepid over. Turn off the news. Turn it off. I want you to look at every anchor out there. Diane Sawyer, Katie Couric, the late Peter Jennings, the Tom Brokaw. Who's Tom Brokaw and who's the other one? Dan Rather. Those were the big three my era. And they're all out of it now, I think. I think Tom Brokaw's even out. Nobody bothers to trace the money trail. The way they live is beyond ridiculous. The Hamptons, up there in Connecticut, New England, the exquisite mansion neighborhoods. These people cleaned up. I'll never forget Diane Sawyer up against, I can't remember that name. I think it was Gibson or Gibbs. I can't remember his name, but I think he's now an actual anchor. But they had a show where they were racing to make a bed, and Martha could not make the bed. He'd made it, and he pleated the corners and everything. I'm like, look at that. The man won, not the woman. You know why? Because women are running around talking trash about men. They don't even clean up their own freaking cars anymore. They're just running around making a mess that we men have to clean up. There's something to stick in your pipe and smoke. Wow, coughed so hard I knocked my can over. I'm noticing something with the young 20-something-year-old women in America. They've been so influenced by the geopolitical new doctrine of the day of save the environment and political correctness that even a lot of Christians now are, well, I don't want to offend anybody. I cannot deal with them. Cannot. Conspiracy theories abound. People think our planet's going to overheat. Well, it is. Revelation said that God increases the temperature. And there is a big earthquake coming, not just to the northwest or the southwest or the southeast or the northeast or the mid-Atlantic, but there's going to be a global earthquake. So great was the earthquake, one like it has never hit the earth before. The cities of the nations fell. So forget all this whoremongering and fear-mongering and craziness and being pimped by the evening news to manipulate your emotions and panic about all the what-ifs that an asteroid could possibly hit you while you're sitting on your toilet. For crying out loud, the minute I get in my truck every day could be the end of the world for me. Jesus is coming back. When? I don't know. You will hear wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes and diverse places, either the beginning of birth pains. People say because things are increasing, oh, it's near. No! This stuff's all been going on. The intensity is going to get intense when the 7-year tribulation begins. Women, you know this. You know what it's like when you start having contractions. You have your monthly pain, which is your period, and all that cyclical stuff that goes on in you. But when you get pregnant and you get close to delivery, the pains are more and intense, and that's what's going to happen to this earth. It's going to convulse. The earthquakes, you think these 9.0, the one that struck in 2011 and caused a tsunami in Japan, and the one that struck in 2004 causing a tsunami, there's going to be bigger stuff than that coming down the pike. And we don't know where. But I know one thing that I can say for certain, based on how America's lived and how rude and narcissistic we've become, I think that there's going to be an awful lot of judgments hitting these shores. We always think it's going to hit the Middle East. You know, we're focusing on ISIS right now. Let me tell you what the biggest danger is to the world more than anything else right now. Can I tell my viewers what it is? Self-centeredness. I want you to think about that. Islamic stuff is evil because it's wrong teaching anyway. Allah does not exist. There is no such thing as Allah. That's a figment of religious men's imagination. Okay? That being said, there's only one God, the Lord God. He is one. The Shema in the Old Testament. Look it up. It's in Deuteronomy. There is no other God. There's one God. The atheists want us to believe there's no God. Wrong answer. Try again, Ronald. Islam is not the biggest threat to this world. Selfishness is. Selfishness is the biggest problem behind anything. Look at the Enron scandal. Selfishness. Look at the subprime mortgage loan. Selfishness. I want to make money. I'm going to gouge people to do it. Look at the problems in our financial state and in our government. Look at the problems when you find politicians caught in scandal and selfishness. Look at Barack Obama's agenda. It's all about him. You want to talk about a narcissistic president? That is the most narcissistic president I've ever seen. Bill Clinton was a second close, but even Bill Clinton did some good things for the economy. And I did not like Bill Clinton. The guy was a shuckster, and he reminds me of a used car salesman. The guy is not even attractive in the least. And I'm not being homosexual when I say that. Women flock to him, and you got to ask why. Is it because he's so good looking? You got to be kidding me. It's because of his power. He's married to a woman. There's no love between those two. It's a political, convenient marriage. When one of those women came forward to Hillary Clinton direct and said, look, your husband came on to me. Do you know what Hillary tried to do? This was just brought across my desk the other day, that Hillary Clinton tried to destroy that woman's career instead of saying, so husband, what's going on? Know this about Hillary Clinton. She's not an honorable woman. She is not a lady. She's a man in combat boots who has had lesbian relationships with other women. And she is a Butch Dyke style woman. All the way. And she has Butch-style politics that are very destructive to this country, unless you're one of the liberal bun huggers that surround her. Hillary Clinton is not a picture of a liberated, enlightened woman, but a symbol of an angry, please look at physical specimens A, B, and C of all her photos in recent years. clenched-jawed, mean-looking, yeah. Bill Clinton was not a man. Trust me. Monica Lewinsky even came out and said she regrets what she did. Not just because she got caught. She was a young girl. Thought, ooh, the president. Did you notice the way that was handled in our U.S. government and justice system? I mean, can I be blunt? She sucked his penis under the Oval Office desk. The Secret Service had a full view of this. They have to. Where was the frickin' justice? Pacific would have said, fired, done, out, boom, jail time. I did not have inappropriate sexual relations with her. Oh, okay, sex isn't defined by getting head. That's sexual behavior. You didn't have intercourse, but it's sexual behavior. And as the president, in that office, on taxpayers' money, screwing around with a dumb intern who was a flake if I ever saw one, you've got to be kidding me. Have I stepped on some toes yet today? Good. Let me keep going. Do you know what they did to Nixon over Watergate? They roasted his balls on a skewer. Over and over and over. But when the Democrats are in power, nothing was done. He was not impeached because there's technicalities about that. That his behavior was not only unethical, but he was on the job. I wonder what would happen is if I went into the break room and went under at the table, and a girl went under the table and sucked me off, if I'd have a job there. No. So what is the lesson that we, our leaders, hand to this nation? If you make it up high enough, you're immune. You gotta be kidding me. The Oval Office doesn't warrant enough of being fired for inappropriate behavior in that office to begin with. For crying out loud, Bill, you couldn't have just gone to a cheap hotel room in a seedy side of town somewhere and hushed it? I'll tell you the values that America's teaching and passing on, that if you're rich enough, you can go like this to the justice system and win. That if you win the presidency because you're black, you're going to have your black constituents think that you're all that on a stick, even though you haven't done a damn thing for the nation. That's messed up. That in America, where everybody's banging on white people and criticizing us and telling us how racist and bad we are, we're the ones that made this country, that you're enjoying all the benefits of, and it's okay for you to slam trash our butts to the wall while bringing nothing but more degradation and tearing the heart of our culture out, encouraging Hispanics or Mexican women to cross the border and have babies over here, which is draining the tax system. I mean, it's unbelievable. Did Bush orchestrate 9/11? Boy, I sure hope not. But does anybody really know for certain anymore on anything? The waters are so muddied, the confusion of politics has gotten so bad over the years that it wouldn't be surprising to me. My only shred that I hang on to is, would Bush order planes to fly into a building and kill 3,000 office workers that are Americans? Boy, I would hope not. But love of self and protecting one's own ego and having one's own agenda, people do get stamped out. Honest, good, upright people are thrown under the bus when selfishness is on the throne. We see that with my attackers. Their goal isn't restorative. I've said this over and over. Their goal is just to rip and tear and keep on and on and on. And the reason I'm making so many references to this is to get back saying I'm fighting and I'm going to say something. I don't care if people say I don't want to hear trolls. I noticed a couple of subscribers jumped out. Good. You know who they are, don't you? Some of my enemies have subscribed so they get video notifications every time I put up a video. And when I said what I said last night, they're going, yeah, that means we're part of the subscription base. Let's jet out of here. Please do. Shoot, I don't care if 1,000 subscriptions dropped off. At least I'll know, wow, I had a whole lot of enemies out there, huh? I don't believe there's 1,000 trolls on my channel, though. I don't. It really boils down to a handful. But they keep making ghost accounts and false IDs and other channels so that they can go click, 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 click on the number of thumbs down. It's quite entertaining watching how silly people are, how far they'll go to think because you got 12 thumbs up and six thumbs down and 454 views, and you're going, wow, you really scored points, huh? The American mind, pretty jacked up. The American mind, flower pots and hail, golf ball size hail that never came over a supposed station that's better than all the others and more accurate. Well, this time it wasn't. To believe that you prayed for a hailstorm not to hit your flower pots while it went elsewhere and did serious damage. And I brought that up, and her response to that as well. I said, what about these farmers? Well, they didn't pray. They didn't have faith. I said, these are Christian. There's people in the farming community. There's a lot of Christians. And they're always asking God to bless their fields and all that. Yes, I live in a house with a Christian who believes she's got more special prayer power than most other people. I've seen her stand out in that back room rebuking the hail in the name of Jesus. I've walked through and I'm just like, I'm not going to shake my head and make a visible display, but internally I'm going, you got to be kidding me. Because I need to respect my elders. That doesn't mean I have to agree with this nonsense. America's a very, very interesting, entertaining, hypocritical, strange place to live. I have a friend in China. His mother's going to go see him, and I'm so happy to hear that. I've gotten the privilege of talking to his mother several times. She's been very kind to me on the phone, and they're from the Cleveland area, Ohio, and I said, I'm really glad your mom's going to go see where you're at. That means something to me. My own mother, in 5 years of living in Duluth, would not even take the time to come and visit me, and her response says, well, he didn't own a house. Oh, I get it. I'm an apartment dweller. I'm not as successful as you want to mean. Really? And when I came back from Hong Kong, I actually had familial feelings and thought, well, maybe I'll go down to Arizona and see my folks and try to. And I told you the story that I headed to North Dakota instead to try to find work, and God came down with a snowplow and said, nope, sent me right down here. And when I got down here, I thought, why do you want to stay in your parents? And then right when I was thinking about all that, my mother called and said, well, you know what, actually we're doing remodeling, so we really can't have you here. And I thought, they don't want me there anyway. They would make the room for me if they loved me. And it just drove that nail back in that coffin, said, don't go into that coffin, Pacific. You're done with them. C'est la vie. You think it doesn't hurt me? For all the laughing and mocking that the trolls make, I'm more of a man than any of them, hands down. That I'm confident of. This isn't about ego. I get up every day with no alcohol, nothing, and I get up and face the day. There's times I get up in the morning going, oh, God, I don't want to go through this at all. But it's part of Venus Star told me to stay. God has given me staying power as well. There's times I've stayed. Now I'm more resolute than before. Before, if I hated something, I just see ya. Getting older, getting wiser, and I'm starting to say, you know what? I'm going to go when God says it's time to go, not before. God has used people on my channel to communicate to me profoundly, and basically, they didn't say it this way, but with a thus saith the Lord. I don't agree with every approach, style, or line by line with Venus. But that woman's got a lot of good in her. And the reason I wanted to shout that out is because I want my viewers to know that this isn't just a channel where I'm being a star. There's some people I value what they have to say. There's some people I want to hear what they have to say. There's people I've reached across the aisle and said, I'd like to get to know you. I've read your comments and they're good. That's how I met Maharani. That's how I met Venus Star. There's some people I've met, with all due respect, that I've talked to them for 5 minutes and thought, oh man, I wish I didn't give out my phone number to this gal. Trying to learn to use more discernment. Then when all this troll crap came down and Facebook drama, I started realizing which one of these people on my Facebook are just an enemy in disguise. And that's when I said, you know what? You don't need a Facebook because you don't know who's who. So if any of you are on my channel wondering where my Facebook was, no, you didn't get blocked. I'm just not going to sit there and try to decipher who's my friend and who's not my friend and hiding in there to cause trouble. At least on my channel, it forces them to bubble up to the surface with their trite little silly redundant videos of me. By the way, thank you to my viewers that messaged me telling me that the baby sounds of Lore Master was funny. I thought that was pretty good too. And if you'll go back to that video and watch the video I included in the link that a viewer sent me saying, this video appears to be Lore Master saying that he did make that page against you on Encyclopedia Dramatica. I'll warn you all, you watch that video, it's pretty gross. But the guy looks like Lore, about as big as him. And I thought, boy, this is, you know, if they're going to fire back and they're going to do the awful things they do, then once in a while I'm going to put the boot in on. Because Pacific is a man and I'm a warrior. And I don't go looking for trouble. But when people want to do this, it's time to step up to the plate and have a little fun. So, that being said, babies will be babies, and people will continue to do the stupid stuff they do. If people really don't like my video, why are they taking the time to thumbs down? Every single one of them is more telling about the life they don't have. No employment, no happiness, no peace, you name it, you fill in the blanks. But I've had fun talking about this stuff. I needed to vent my spleen, and I have. And I'm glad. Because you know what? Bottom line is, at the end of the day, God loves Pacific. God still uses me in his own way. God still has a plan for me. And God has a plan for each and every one of my viewers, providing they cooperate with him. But I stayed because Venus Star was moved by God to put that straight into me and say, don't run. Running from the trolls is the same thing. You need to face them and call them out by their names. You need to face your enemy, and you don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. They're not showing the whites of their eyes. They're cowards. They wouldn't have even made good people in the revolution. Soldiers that are useless and worthless. Throwing grenades from behind enemy lines, not caring where the shrapnel flies, not looking, not allowing us to see them by the whites of their eyes. They're cowards, chickens, all of them, that raise their swords in vain. You cannot see them. You just see their endless trolling game. This is Pacific, signing off. Bye-bye.